Has coffee consumption gone up now since joining our new team here?
Nabil, I don't think I should confess to these things on your podcast, but I consume probably more coffee and tea than I should.
Tube socks, boy, about to pop the lunchbox. Tube socks, boy, about to
President of
pop
the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, Americas and India, an industry heavyweight with over 3 decades of experience, world traveler, we'll talk a lot about that, former CEO of Applebee's and Sweet Green, Sanjiv Razdan. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Nabil, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, the honor is all mine. We get a lot of amazing people, but I think you're just the perspective of, someone who looks like me, someone who's traveled the world, someone who started so far away and now is in Santa Monica. I'm so excited to hear a little bit about your journey.
I am happy to share, and I just got an upgrade by being called that I look like you. So,
Yeah,
you're saying all the right
better,
things.
look better, look better, look better. Sorry I didn't mean to be rude. Look better, much
I
better, much better.
no, not at all.
So listen, would love to hear. Forget about when you started in the restaurant business, which you started very early. How was life before that? Like who was Sanjiv before first day at the restaurant?
Nabil, I feel like I am a permanent immigrant. I grew up all over India. My father was with the Ministry of Defense, so we would keep getting transferred every 3 years growing up. My mom was a school teacher, dad was an architect. I have one younger sister. And as far as memory takes me, I remember every 2 to 3 years coming back home and being told, hey, we're moving to this new city. So we moved from New Delhi to Calcutta to Lucknow to Mumbai to Port Blair, like all these fun places. So spent the first 30 years of my life or so in India. And then we migrated from there to Dallas, Texas to London in England. And then we moved back to India for a while. Then we immigrated to the US. So life has been a series of fun adventures.
I got jet lag just listening you listing all the places you've been to. Like what skill do you have as this amazing seasoned executive now that you've brought in because of all those travels? Is there something that traveling did to you that makes you who you are today?
Absolutely. I think there's 2 or 3 things that I picked up. One is that the only permanent thing in life is change, and you plan for change and you think ahead. Two, you reach out to people, you share your story, and you very quickly find that you're embraced with love and support. That's just the nature of humanity. And the third thing I find is that the more you travel, the more you recognize that there are different perspectives, different lenses to see every situation. And as long as you're willing to listen, it really shapes you as a human and a leader.
Yeah. One of my favorite books out there is The Alchemist. It's about just traveling, going far away from home. One of my favorite humans, I have a picture of him on the wall, Anthony Bourdain. He talks about it all the time. Travel far. Traveling is not just fun, it hurts, but you get to hear from others. And I think we desperately need more of that.
Undoubtedly. And it's all about how you make people feel. It's all about rolling with the punches and just embracing the journey.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's talk about the beginning. Was it Pizza Hut where you were first joined as a training manager? Would love to hear, your journey there, and how does someone go from there to rising so quickly within that system? Would love to just hear like what day one looked like or the early days looked like.
Of course, I started my career with hotels in Sheraton as a trainee. First 5 years doing that. Loved it, fell in love with the industry, the hospitality, working alongside teams. The economy in India was opening up at the time, Nabil, and Pepsi Cola started coming in. And Pepsi Cola used to own a bunch of brands. So they came in with Pizza Hut. I was interviewing for a role of a restaurant general manager. I remember never having seen a Pizza Hut, but I was shown a video of what it might look like. And I fell in love with what this wonderful concept was. And the rest, as they say, is history. Day one, I show up to this very slick office in New Delhi, met a handful of great leaders. It was a small but mighty team. One of them was Niren Chaudhary, who then went on to become CEO of Panera Brands.
Yeah, I see his guitar videos on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Ajay Banga was our head of marketing, who is now CEO of World Bank. The CFO was Harmeet Singh, who is now the CFO of Levi's. It was like incredible.
Wow. It was like the PayPal mafia.
Exactly. So this is like amazing people. I show up and then they say, do you have a passport? Because we're about to send you to the US to train. So that was day one. Delightful, inspiring, and just full of possibilities.
And how quickly did you get on a plane after that ask about your passport?
I think in 30 days, our visas were sorted out. We were handed over in those days what used to be called American Express traveler's checks before the world of credit cards. And off we went on a plane from New Delhi to Dallas, Texas.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I would love to understand how you went from someone who was training to someone who, climbed this ladder, and I'm sure it wasn't what you were trying to do, but what happened? What were you doing that kept on putting more responsibility on your plate?
I think what I'd love to share with anyone, because I started off as a restaurant general manager. By the time I left my first stint in India, Nabil, I was the CEO of Yum's Indian subcontinent business. And there were 2 or 3 things that really stood by me that helped me grow. I think first thing was just know where you want to go. I think at every role that I did, I said to my supervisors, the HR team, my colleagues, here's what my aspiration is. This is what next role I'd like to do. Do you see me being able to do it? And what would you like to see me demonstrate in order for you to hand me the keys to that role? And that was incredibly helpful because I was not demanding it in a span of some fixed time. I was saying, hey, I understand I might need to demonstrate a few things or learn a few things. Let me know what that is so I can shape my journey. I think that has helped me certainly to climb the ladder. That was one thing. I think the second thing was always trying to find how do I create a legacy? How do you add value? By doing things differently and doing different things. So what do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. At very, very early stage of my career in India, Yum was driving this culture of customer mania. So we were trying to figure out how do you spark customer mania in our restaurants. So one of the things we landed up doing was installing a bell in every Pizza Hut casual dining restaurant in India, which said, hey, did you have a good time? Ring the bell. And so we had our guests, as they were leaving, ring the bell, and then the entire restaurant, the crew would stop and shout out, thank you. And if we saw somebody leaving the restaurant not having rung the bell, we'd say, hey, how was your experience? Is there something you would have liked us to do differently? And if they had some feedback, we'd get it. If not, we'd say, hey, would you mind ringing the bell? And so that was just such an amazing thing, and the guests would get into it. So an example of doing things differently, right? An example of doing different things was I was working for Pizza Hut India. It's as much a rice-eating country as it is a bread-eating country, yet Pizza Hut is all bread, as you know. So we took a local food like biryani, which is spiced aromatic rice with either vegetables or meat in it. We put a pizza crust on top of it and baked it like a pie, and we called it birizza.
Wow.
Right? We invited food critics to its inauguration. Essentially just disruptive innovation that people have not seen. So even though we didn't have huge advertising budgets, we were creating things that stood out. So that's an example of doing different things. So know where you want to be, express that very clearly, do things differently, do different things, and last but not the least, treat people with courage and compassion, because as you grow as a leader, people have to want to work for you. So those were some things that really helped me grow.
Wow. I love that. And it shows, we have a mutual friend, Amy Hom, and the way she speaks about you and everything she's learned from you. I'm having dinner with her tonight, by the way. So she connected us, but I see that reflected in the people you have coached as well and you have interacted with as well. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I think that's universal wisdom, especially the first one, which is let your manager know where you want to go. They'll either create a path for you if they're a good leader, or they'll tell you you're completely off and it's time for you to reevaluate if they're right or if you're in the wrong place.
Exactly that. It's such an important conversation to have. So, and yeah, thank you for saying that. Amy's quite the star herself.
She's amazing. You were the CEO of Applebee's and Sweetgreen, and I'm a huge fan of Sweetgreen. As someone who grew up in New York, as someone who's a former restaurateur, we used to just look at Sweetgreen and what you guys were doing, and we're like, those guys are crazy. Like, how can they build such incredible tech and such incredible ecosystem and such incredible experiences that's so end-to-end, so omni-channel? We're just blown away. We were just a 30, 40 unit burger chain, and we just looked at what you guys were doing and what you were doing, and we're like, we are a small brand too. How can we empower, our brand to go ahead and be that tech forward? Was that a mandate that came from the founders? Was that something like, can you tell us about, how you approached this tech company that sold food once in a while?
Sweetgreen's biggest gift or strength are the three co-founders, Nick, Nate, and John, who are just these incredible visionaries with very unique and special gifts. And when you pool the three of those gifts together, they created this incredible mission-driven, founder-led, tech-enabled food company whose mission was to connect communities with real food. Incredible. They had a fabulous consumer brand, a very lifestyle brand. And the vision was very simple of they were trying to create the Spotify of food. And the moment they articulated that vision, it made it pretty straightforward for the rest of the team to understand where we were trying to go, which was so critical. We were trying to create digitally or technology enabled experiences which were hyper customized, bring food that was locally sourced, real food, scratch cooked in the stores, and then distribute them to the consumers wherever they were, whenever they needed it, and create this ecosystem that supported it. It was quite possibly the most exciting role I've ever had. I joined them when they were about 60 locations odd. I left them when they were about 110. This was a rocket ship that I absolutely enjoyed being on. It was a privilege.
Were you guys aware from the inside that everyone was looking at you guys, brands that were tiny, had a single location, and also the Yum brands of the world looking at this amazing salad company really changed the way food is served? Like, did you guys feel the pressure, or was it just us on the outside looking in at all?
No, I think we felt pride and pressure. Both. I think there was pride in what had been accomplished. It made a lot of people proud. It attracted talent to the business. It attracted consumers to the business. And there was an incredible amount of pressure of just not letting either our consumers down, our investors down, or the pressure of being the darling of the trade press and the consumer press, right? So much was written about it. Being a unicorn and everything. I think that pressure everybody in the company wore on their shoulders every single day. It certainly was not lost on anyone.
That's amazing. You also talk a lot on LinkedIn about, mentorship and giving back. And, I was looking at, your work with Gleam Network. Why is that important to you?
Nabil, I started off my career with very humble means. When I was getting started in life, I borrowed money from an aunt of mine to be able to buy a scooter. The fact that I got to work with a company like ITC in India, which is a giant, just an incredible privilege. And the reason that I was able to go from where I started to what the interesting roles I get to do it today was because a lot of people gave up their time to sit me down and share with me some honest truths, whether it was bitter pills of honesty, whether it was words of encouragement, whether it was belief, whether it was sponsorship. These were mentors and sponsors that supported my journey. And I thought that's how the universe is like, particularly during the 20 years that I was at Yum Brands. When I left Yum Brands and I came into other organizations, I discovered that structured leadership development and mentorship is not accessible to most people. We take it for granted. And I wanted to figure out how to give it back or pay it forward. I started doing that personally, but then my dream was to scale it. And in order to scale it, had the privilege of working alongside several other like-minded, passionate folks who wanted to pay it forward. And we collectively created what we now call Gleam Network. And Gleam's a mnemonic for Global Leadership Enhancement and Mentorship Network, where our story is present on gleam.net. And one of our signature programs that we provide to serve communities that are underserved in this area is a mentorship program.
I love that. We were talking about it in our company as well on how we can do that. So our leadership team is setting up office hours where we can, talk to younger members of our company and mentor them or connect them with someone else we know that are our peers that can mentor some of these folks. So we're just getting started on that in the last few days. And as I was reading about Gleam, I was, even more inspired to continue to move forward with that.
Thank you so much, Nabil. I appreciate it. I think one of the biggest gifts that we can give our teams and our people is opportunities for development and mentorship and learning, or to enrich themselves by mentoring others. In fact, I was speaking to one of our advisory board members yesterday, Robin Blanchette. She is a very accomplished marketer, CEO and founder of a organization called Norton Creative, who does work in the restaurant space from a marketing perspective. She sent 3 of her people as mentees to the program, and they've just come back and said how incredibly impactful it was and profusely thanking her for it. And for me, that sort of warms my heart and fills my cup, and that's why we do these things.
Well, listen, no pun intended, but fills your cup. Let's talk about coffee a little bit.
Of course.
You were not a big caffeine guy before. Are the rumors true that you're not a big coffee guy before coffee being a tea leaf?
You cannot grow up in India and not be fond of either coffee or tea. It just is not possible, right? So we're culturally, I was more of a chai person. It started off because my mom was, I think, addicted to chai, and I was, always fixing a brew for her at home. Really never got into the business until 3 years ago. Or 4 years ago, when I had the chance of serving on the board of Bluestone Lane and then eventually working for the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf.
That's awesome. Has coffee consumption gone up now since joining our new team here?
Nabil, I don't think I should confess to these things on your podcast, but I consume probably more coffee and tea than I should. I start my mornings with tea. My favorite is to have cardamom tea in the morning. I have it with a spot of milk. By the time I get into office, I get myself a cappuccino. In fact, I make one for myself. It's my favorite thing to do. I find it therapeutic to make espresso drinks. And then as the day progresses, I move on to herbal teas and just try different flavored herbal teas, which are a bit easier on the system.
Okay, we're going to talk about health a little bit because I used to drink caffeine till 5. And then 6 months ago, I cut it at 3. And now I'm cutting it off at 1, and I'm struggling. I've been doing this for a week now. I'm really struggling. What's your cutoff for cutting off caffeine?
I listen to my body is the probably best way of describing it. And some days I need 5, and some days, 1's enough. So I don't have like a pattern. I'd like to try and mix it up so that it doesn't become like a pattern habit. I like to mix up what I'm having, how frequently, what time, and try and not become a creature of complete pattern habit, and that's what helps me keep it a bit flexible. But I don't think I've ever gone beyond 5, but more often than not 3 is pretty standard.
I love it. Thank you. You've heard it here first. No, nothing controversial has been said so far. So I think you and I, if there's anything terrible here, we'll cut it out. But I think we're good so far. Listen, from your career to the Gleam Network to everything you've done at Sweet Green, now doing at Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, it's no secret that you like to just push the ball forward. And I'd love to hear if you have intention before the year starts. We're still early on in 2024. Is there a similar intention of something big you're trying to push in your orbit in 2024?
Yeah, what a great and thoughtful question. Yes, is the short answer. I think at the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, the brand that we are growing is based on the foundation of what I call care, craft, and human connection. Care for how we source the beans, where they're grown, how we roast them in an artisan style, micro roasting, to the care and how it shows up in your cup, craft in the way that our craft beverages are prepared, and human connection with your barista, which is what coffee experience is all about, that little connection. So we're on the midst of a business transformation. We're growing our business, innovating, particularly not just around coffee, but doing some very exciting things around the way we're bringing contemporary tea to life for our consumers. So I'm very excited about that. But even more excited than what we're doing on the product and the brand is this notion of Maya Angelou, right? Which says, people will forget what you've done. People will forget what you've achieved. Ultimately, what people remember is how you made them feel. And I, as a leader, want to make sure that this year I show up as my best self and leave a legacy of just making people feel valued, respected, empowered, enabled, achieving their potential more than they even thought was possible. That is what gets me out of bed every day.
Wow. I leave these calls always educated. Today I leave hungrier because of the biryani pizza fusion, and also inspired. I'm a leader, I'm a young leader, I'm learning. Most days don't know what I'm doing, but engaging and talking to folks like you and what you guys have done, even the feedbacks programs you've put together with teams you've worked and led, just reading and learning about you and just hearing from you today, it's been really inspiring. Thank you so much.
Nabil, thank you so much. You are a role model yourself, coming from the background that you do and having achieved as much as you have and made a name for yourself and built this wonderful business and brand. I hope you do realize you are quite a significant role model for many in the industry. Power to you, and I'll be cheering you on as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll share some coffee soon.
to fly with me. Tube socks, boy, about to pop the lunchbox. Tube socks, boy.